President Trump last week endorsed Congressman Andy Biggs for governor. This a few months after endorsing another Republican, Karen Taylor Robson, for governor. What does it mean for next year's GOP primary and general election? We ask political consultant Chuck Coughlin, president of High Ground. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks for being here.
Okay, they're both endorsed. How does that work?
It's Trump 101, right? I mean, he's got a history of doing this. He did this up in the congressional district race in CD8 last time with Abe Hamina and Blake Masters. But a lot of people anticipated this because he endorsed Karen at a Turning Point rally in December of this past year and got a little pushback from some of the more conservative parts of the party. And then Congressman Biggs announced, Congressman Biggs, the head of the Freedom Caucus, and many of us were doing the math on the resolution, the budget resolution, which we all remember. There was like 12 or 15 Freedom Caucus Republicans who were no. They were a no on that, and many of us were thinking, okay, that's the end of the budget resolution. And then, boom, the next day, they voted almost en masse for the budget resolution. Many of us thought maybe there was a few trade-offs there that may have taken place. And I believe that at that point, Mr. Biggs secured the commitment of the president to endorse him as well.
And yet, in capital letters, the president texted out, "Give my complete and total endorsement to both." Yeah. I mean, what does that mean? And what does it mean politically in the political class? What does it mean to the average person in Arizona who may think, I like Trump, I like MAGA, I want to follow him? Where do they follow him?
Well, I mean, it's a pure blood MAGA endorsement, right? I mean, Biggs was the chairman of the Freedom Caucus. He has never passed a bill in Congress in his entire time there. And he is pretty much a deconstructionist. Somebody who really doesn't believe in the role of government. I would call him mostly an ideological libertarian. And a lot of that appeals to the DOGE, eliminate waste crowd, which is that, remember, it's only 20% of Republicans that vote in a Republican primary. And these are your most loyal MAGA folks. And so and you have Turning Point. You have Turning Point here in Arizona,
right,
which is an advocacy organization for very strong MAGA interest, and they seem to be supporting Mr. Biggs.
So what does it mean for Karen Taylor Robson?
Well, it's not great news. She's going to have to work hard. It's her business record that she was running on. She's a successful businesswoman. She's been an entitlement lawyer for DMB, which is developed all kinds of properties around the state. Her brother was the former Maricopa County supervisor, chairman of the board. Her father was a Senate president way back in the day. So the family has a long line of public service, and she has a record of business accomplishment. Her argument's going to be, if you want somebody to get something done, I'm your gal. And I think that's going to be a very hard campaign to run, but she is blessed with a great deal of resources. Her husband is Ed Robson, Robson Communities, and Ed loves his wife. And so Ed's going to do whatever he can to support her.
But she can say, she can take the offensive against Congressman Biggs to a certain degree, but the MAGA crowd can take a lot of offense against Karen Taylor. I mean, already the head of the Arizona Freedom Caucus, KTAR, is the swamp. I mean, that's what she has to go against in the primary.
But she's going to have this amazing fundraising advantage. I think she had, in her last report, had over 4,000 individual contributors. She has $1 million in her PAC. In the last quarter, she raised over $850,000 just for her campaign. So it becomes a turnout campaign. What can you take that Republican turnout, and can you turn that into 25, 26%, and make it a referendum on where the Republican Party's going? And do you want somebody that believes in Donald Trump's agenda and knows how to manage it, or do you want somebody who's doesn't have any record?
Does it become a nasty campaign?
I think so.
You think so?
I do. If Karen's going to be successful, it's going to have to be rough. And it'll be interesting. And again, Karen ran this last time and lost to Kari Lake. And then she's got a statewide campaign experience under her belt. and he does not. He ran his only competitive campaign. He nearly lost to Christine Jones when he ran the first time for Congress. When Matt Salmon decided not to run again,
Yes.
he endorsed Mr. Biggs. Christine ran against him as a carpetbagger. She didn't even live in the district. She came 9 votes away from beating him in that cycle. That's the only competitive race he's ever had.
Yeah, I think we tend to forget this is a statewide race.
This is a
and
statewide
Congressman
race.
Biggs is very well known in the Valley and extremely well known in the East Valley. Other parts of the state, maybe not so much.
Not so much. I mean, that his district, District 5, very, very deeply Republican district. It will never be represented by a Democrat. We were talking today, it's been white, mostly Mormon men that have represented that district for many, many years.
That being said, you mentioned Democrats. What do the Democrats think about all this, and how does Governor Hobbs, what does she want to see?
I think she's ringing the dinner bell on this one. I think she's pretty happy that this has turned into what she had hoped would be a significant competitive fight on the Republican side, similar to what we saw last time. We saw in the gubernatorial cycle last time, Karen and Matt. Matt didn't drop out till very late.
Yes.
His name was still on the ballot. There's people that have said if Matt had dropped out earlier, his name's not on the ballot, Karen probably wins that race. And so it was a very competitive race. And I'm pretty confident it's going to be a competitive race. And of course, Mrs. Hobbs will very much enjoy watching the Republicans beat the tar out of one another.
Who would she rather face?
My instinct would be rather face Mr. Biggs because of the narrownesses of his constituency, that he's never run statewide before, that he doesn't have a perceived broad base of support. You know, you need in Arizona, in order to win a statewide election, you need a majority of Republicans, but you also need a plurality of unaffiliated voters. And I think Mrs. Hobbs would feel advantaged in talking to those types of voters.
Last question. Could someone at the last second pop up in the Republican primary to just gum up the works and make us rethink the numbers there? Could someone jump into the general election as a third candidate and gum up the works there?
Well, I'm going to do one better. I'm not clear that the Democratic primary is going to be an unfettered affair either.
Interesting.
I believe, there's a lot of questions about Governor Hobbs and her confidence within the party and her ability to win a statewide election. And so there's questions there. I know Mr. Fontes announced his reelection campaign today. You have Mrs. Mays, who's been the forefront of the state's opposition to the Trump administration. You have other people in the business community and Democrats that aren't necessarily pleased with her as well. And then, like you said, I think it's going to be really hard. I've always thought that an independent candidate would have a shot. It's really, really hard because you have a significant amount of partisans. You have 35% of Democrats and 35 that shows up in an election, and that's your dedicated base. And so, you're not left with a lot of the electorate that if you're running as an independent to play with. And the big problem there is you disappear until the general election happens.
Right. But you could be a spanner in the works.
You could. I mean, I don't think anything's off the table right now.
Yeah.
I would think I'd keep my eyes on the ball, see what this is going to look like. We're months and months away from calling this in any serious way. It's going to be a very entertaining year. You'll have lots more guests to talk about.
We're trying to keep our eye on the ball all the time, Chuck. Good to see you again. Good stuff. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the opportunity.